Right then guys, it's PSL here, and I'm here for a career mode video on F1 2017. Well actually, I say a career mode video, I'm not going to be doing a race or anything like that. It's actually a review of the career mode on F1 2017. Because, well, it's got me miffed. Specifically the R&D system. But I do want to, before I delve into the R&D system, which is the main topic of discussion for this video, I do want to get out there that I do think that F1 2017 is a properly good Formula 1 game. I'd say the third best I've ever played. Well, certainly in my top three. It's probably the second best. Actually, no, let me rephrase that. It's probably my second favourite ever Formula 1 game. It's probably the best one I've ever played, but it's probably my second favourite anyway. And overall, I do like the game. I love the addition of the classic cars, and there's quite a lot of variety there. And I like how they've been integrated into the career mode, although there's 20 classic invitational events. The problem is that once you've gone through the cycle in the career mode, once you've gone through the cycle of being offered the 10 different pairs, you just get offered random invitational events. And that's why you're seeing in the background the invitational events, 2004 Ferrari, the checkpoint challenge around Spa-Francorchamps, because the game kept offering me that particular invitational event. I don't know why, but it just kept on offering it to me. Or it was always one of the two that it would offer to me, and I always chose that one because it was the best one. Well, when I say best one, it was the one that I could do in the quickest possible time. Also, with the career mode, I love the fact that you've got the engine components and gearbox wear, and I like how obviously you have to manage those components. You can buy durability upgrades, and so you have to manage it well so you don't get an excessive amount of grid place penalties. I like it in theory, and I think it was executed somewhat well, although as you're seeing in the background, there were some races where everyone, pretty much everyone, got penalties. I mean, look at the Brazilian Grand Prix from the first season, which I did with my other career mode with Sauber. Everyone, apart from Hamilton, Grosjean and myself, had grid penalties. And in later seasons, it was never that bad. In fact, in the third season, which is the furthest I've gotten so far, I've only done 3 complete seasons, I never had a race with that many penalties. But I don't know whether that was because it was patched, whether it was fixed by Codemasters, or whether it's because teams bought durability upgrades and then so the problem kind of went away. But either way, the fact is however it's been fixed, it's not as big of a problem anymore, but it was still way more extreme than we've seen in real life Formula 1 this season so far anyway. Sticking with the grid place penalties for using an excessive amount of engine components or replacing your gearboxes too early, I think the penalty system's flawed. Again, I'm not 100% sure whether this has been patched or not. I think it might have been, but it's kind of impossible to say because all the teams, well, later on down the line there weren't so many penalties. But if you look at the Mexican Grand Prix, it's still in the first season, I started 7th and first of everyone who took penalties, and that's despite the fact I replaced all of my engine components, so I had almost as big of a penalty as possible. I was only missing the 5th place gearbox penalty, yet I was still ahead of everyone else who had penalties, including Max Verstappen, who started last, and I do not know how that's possible because he qualified. And here's the thing, is I had almost as many grid place penalties as possible, yet still started ahead of everyone else, and I didn't even qualify. I didn't even set a qualifying time. So the system was certainly flawed. It's difficult to say whether it's been fixed now, but I just thought I should bring it up because it's another example of a feature which was brought in, great in theory, but the execution, for whatever reason, was just a bit flawed and was, well, extreme. Anyway, those issues aside, I still like this game. I think it is a phenomenal game. The classic cars, sure, the invitational events, it got a little bit repetitive after a while in the career mode, although you can just not do them, so it's not like they're a forced requirement by any means. Well, it kind of encourages you to do 20, but anyway, that's kind of irrelevant. But the thing is though, is that's not really why I made this video. I just tagged those earlier talking points on because what I'm really here to talk about is the R&D system, because that is the system, that's the thing about this game which perplexes me the most. Now, as we know, the R&D system was promised to be so much deeper and better than last year's, going from 25 upgrades that you can fit onto your car on F1 2016 to 115 different upgrades you can fit on your car on F1 2017. The thing is though, is it was advertised, it was plugged, it was going to be massive. It was one of the big new changes and developments that Codemasters, they put in their trailers. The point is it was certainly something that they were trying to drive home about, the R&D development tree. The thing is though, is having 90 more upgrades, I don't think is really that positive of a change. And sure, the R&D system was hardly perfect on F1 2016. It was overpowered and you could win the World Drivers' Championship with any team within 3 seasons. And I know that because I did it twice. I did it once with Sauber, I did it once with Manor. And in fact, the time I did it with Sauber was a part of my all 10 seasons of career mode video I did on F1 2016. Which this video is kind of a precursor to. I will do an all 10 seasons video on F1 2017 later on down the line once I eventually do all 10 seasons. This is more of a kind of review of the R&D system. The all 10 seasons video, which I'll do later on down the line, that will be purely stating what happened. But the thing is though, is I had lots of comments on that all 10 seasons of career mode video on F1 2016. Loads of people saying, oh, what's the point of it being 10 seasons long? Why is the R&D system, you know, why can you fit all the upgrades so quickly? And they're right. They're completely right. What's the point of having an R&D system, you know, a 10 season career mode when you can fit all the upgrades within the 3rd season? I did twice. I did it, you know, within 3 seasons. So obviously to address those issues, Codemasters, they put in an extra 90 upgrades you can fit to your car, which means the whole R&D cycle and teams improving has been slowed down dramatically, so it's much more realistic. And of course, you know, if you're really interested in the upgrade system, you would start with McLaren or Sauber, like me, I started with Sauber, and you would try to make them a winning team. Now obviously that's an uphill battle and a long-term goal. Making Sauber a winning team is not going to be done within 3 seasons like it was on F1 2016. It is a long-term goal, and so to be able to achieve that, or to even be able to have a chance of achieving that, you need to think long-term. So to be as time-effective and cost-effective as possible in the long term, you would want to spend as few resource points as possible to get all of the upgrades. Now thankfully on F1 2017 you can buy discounts, which end up making all of the upgrades except the durability ones 50% cheaper. And I've mentioned this on my career mode videos, but it is cheaper to pay for the discounts and then buy every upgrade at 50% of its original price than it is to just buy every upgrade at full price. Because I did the maths weeks ago, so here it is. So to buy every powertrain upgrade with no discounts, just to buy every powertrain upgrade as standard, would cost you 19,000 resource points. Now obviously if you made all the upgrades half price, that would then become 9,500 resource points, but of course you have to pay 5,000 to be able to discount it. But in total, to pay for the discounts plus then pay for every upgrade at a discounted price, it's 14,500 resource points. That's 4,500 resource points cheaper than if you just buy every upgrade at full price. And it's the same with the other departments as well. The aerodynamics, if you just want to buy every upgrade as standard, is 32,500 resource points. Paying for the discounts costs 7,500 resource points, and then every upgrade at half price is then 16,250. Overall is 23,750 to pay for every upgrade and the discounts at a 50% price. So that's a saving of, well, just under 9,000 resource points on the aerodynamics department alone if you pay for discounts. Same with chassis, no discounts, 26,500 resource points. With discounts, it's 13,250 plus the 6,250 to discount it. That is 19,500 resource points. Long and the short of it, in total you save 20,250 resource points to pay for the discount and then buy every upgrade at half price. That's the cheaper way to do it. And of course, if you're thinking about a long-term goal, which is, you know, to make Sauber a winning team, or certainly, you know, a competitive top-end midfield team like a Force India equivalent, to do that you would need to be as cost-effective as possible. So saving money in the long run is certainly what you need to do. And that's what I did. I went through 3 whole seasons simulating every single race session in those 3 seasons. So I didn't take part in a single race, nor did I take part in a single qualifying session because, well, I needed to get through 3 seasons as quickly as possible. When I do my all 10 seasons of career mode video, I need to get through 10 seasons. 10 seasons! That's going to take a long time, hence why I'm not doing the races myself. Now the game even says that if you simulate the races, you get less resource points than if you actually took part in the race and did the race yourself. And same for qualifying, I lost out on resource points by not taking part in qualifying. But the fact is I needed to do this in a somewhat timely manner. Anyway, long and short of it, it took me 2 whole seasons just to buy the discounts. That's 2 whole seasons of standing still and doing nothing, whilst every other team developed and pulled further and further and further ahead of Sauber. To be fair, it was slightly more than just the discounts, because I also bought the quality control upgrades, all of them, for the chassis department. That's a part of another different experiment which I'll cover in the all 10 season of career mode video, basically just to find out if the quality control upgrades are worth it. But also, actually, another point which I forgot to mention, if a part fails, then obviously you have to pump more resource points into it to be able to make it a valid upgrade that you can fit to your car. Now, with the 50% discount, not only does it make buying the parts cheaper, it also makes improving the parts if they fail, it also makes them cheaper. So that means all of the minor upgrades, instead of costing 1,000 and then 500 if they failed, actually end up costing 500 and then only 250 if they failed. So actually, I say you save 20,250 resource points by buying the discounts. That's assuming that no parts fail, because the second any parts fail, the savings increase exponentially with every single part that fails. But anyway, I paid for all of the discounts and all of the quality control upgrades only on the chassis department, but that took 2 entire seasons, 2 seasons of doing nothing. So Sauber, we were nowhere. I'm sure you can see when I simulate the races, I'm sure I'll have up a couple of screens of some race results where Sauber, we just ended up nowhere. I think Pascal Wehrlein, there were some races where he was 2 minutes off of the race leader, which doesn't sound too bad, but well, you just gotta look at it because proportionately, comparatively speaking, that's abysmal. The good news is that after 2 whole seasons of doing nothing, by the end of the 3rd season, Sauber, we had just caught up to McLaren. And in fact, just before the start of the Australian Grand Prix in Season 4, which is pretty much as far as I've gotten up to currently, Sauber, we've now got a car which is as good as Haas's. And sure, I would have fitted more upgrades by this point if I did the qualifying and race sessions myself, because I would have earned more resource points over the course of an entire race weekend. But the thing is though, is 3 seasons and Sauber, we've now got a car which is pretty much as good as Haas's. But I'm pretty bored. I've done 3 seasons, I haven't actually done any of the races, and I'm bored stiff of it. And I didn't even have to do any of the qualifying or race sessions, I just did the practice programs. 3 seasons, and the only payoff we've had is to be as good as Haas, which to be honest, isn't really why I would do this. And it's going to take a whole lot longer to get this Sauber to be as quick as, I don't know, a Force India or Williams. Heaven forbid we might even get up towards the top 3. I did an F1 2016. In fact, I'd already won a championship by this point, an F1 2016. But as I said, that game's R&D system was ridiculous. And the thing is though, is how... The R&D system, I think it's now too slow. On F1 2016, well, people criticised it for being too quick, but I'll be honest, I quite liked the whole, you can start in a really bad car and then win within 3 seasons, because, and this may sound weird for me being an F1 YouTuber, I've never done more than 3 seasons on any F1 game, none. Well, apart from F1 Manager, Grand Prix Manager 2, Motorsport Manager, which isn't actually technically an F1 game, but it's, you know, the same genre. That's it. I've never done more than 3 seasons on any F1 game. Never on F1 Championship Edition, which I think is phenomenal. I've only ever done 1 complete season. F1 2010, I got bored. The Singapore Grand Prix in the 2nd season. So that's the thing. F1 2010, I pre-ordered it. I got it on the day it came out. I was 12 years old when it came out. I didn't have that many other PS3 games, and that was back in 2010. I still loved Formula 1, whereas now I'd say I only like it. Anyway, the point being is I was 12 years old, had all the time in the world, and I still got bored of the game midway through, or just past midway through in the 2nd season. So who's going to do 3 seasons? Maybe this is more of a personal thing, but I would never play 3 seasons on an F1 game. F1 2016 maybe, because at least if you're a Sauber on that game, at least you're constantly moving forward and fitting on upgrades. But the thing is I had to do on this, bearing in mind I didn't even do any of the races, I had to do 2 whole seasons of not fitting a single upgrade and getting further and further and further down the field. It's like being Fernando Alonso. How demotivating. How demotivating is it? The longer you're there, the slower you get, relatively speaking, compared to everyone else. No wonder Fernando Alonso is always considering upping stakes going over to IndyCar because, I mean, he's been at McLaren for a couple of years, well, 3 years now, and McLaren have made no progress. And this is exactly what it was at Sauber. For 2 whole seasons, we were at the back and we just got further and further and further towards the back, isolated by ourselves. And here's the thing, is who's going to do 2 whole seasons of that? You get bored, surely. And that's the thing, that I think this is the fault of the R&D system, is I think there's a happy middle ground between F1 2016s and F1 2017s. I'll be honest, I actually think F1 2017's R&D system could be fixed if you didn't have to buy discounts and all of the upgrades were, I don't know, 20 or 30% cheaper. Because, well, okay, let's look at a completely different route. Let's look at some people who haven't done this, because that's a long-term goal. So let's have a look at it from the perspective that you're going to try and keep pace on development with everyone else. So I think the best example I can think of is Tom97HD with his career mode. He's towards the end of the 2nd season at the time of me making this video. He's been with Force India throughout the entire time, and if you look at his R&D, if you look at the Vehicle Performance Index comparison graph, whatever they call it, his Force India car is still in the same place as it was at the start of the 1st season. He's still just behind the Williams, still just ahead of a Renault, hasn't really caught up to the top 3 of Red Bull, Mercedes or Ferrari. So what's the point? What is the point? So that means he's done nearly 2 seasons racing in every single race, trying to keep pace, and sure, he's been keeping pace, he's been doing very good at that. But he's done nearly 2 seasons, there's no real progress to show for it. I mean, he's got better at the game, I'm sure, but in terms of, you know, his car, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of the field, there's no progress. So where's the motivation to carry on? I saw Arava tweeting literally about half an hour before I recorded this, literally about half an hour before, and he was talking about how the resource points, the system's stingy is the word he used. I think pointless is the word I would use, because if you try and keep pace with everyone else, which I think Tom97HD, he's the best example I can find of it. If you try and keep pace, well, you can keep pace with every other team, but you can't outdevelop any other team like you could on F1 2016. And if you try and do a long-term goal like I've been doing with Sauber, and sure, we've been starting to outdevelop every team, but that's involved 2 seasons of doing nothing, and then a 3rd season where eventually Sauber, we overtook McLaren, and we're pretty much on a level position with Haas. I'd get bored, as I've already said, I would get bored by that point. I've never done 3 seasons on any F1 game, as I said, even F1 2010. So here's the way I see it. You've got 2 different ways of playing career mode, well, 3 different ways. 2 I've gone through so far. Either you start with a back market team, or any team realistically, but you try and pay for all of the discounts, you then have 2 seasons of doing nothing, and then eventually you can overtake every other team. Or you just pay for the upgrades as and when you can, and then you're stuck. You can't overtake anyone realistically, you're going to be just stuck in the same position as you started off in. The only other way to play career mode is obviously you start in a lower team, you do well, and then you get a contract offer from another team, which is how it's been in F1 games since 2004 was the first F1 game to have a career mode. That's how it's always been, where you just start in a team and then you get a contract offer from another team, you do well there, you get a contract offer from a better team. In which case, what is the point of the R&D system? Because as far as I can tell, the only way to move forward in career mode is to either play the long game like I've done with Sauber, and then eventually you can outdevelop everyone, or you just fit upgrades, stick in the same place as you have done at the start of the career mode, and then eventually accept a contract offer from another team. That's it, there's no other viable way of doing it. Here's the thing, is the R&D system has well and truly wound me up. There's too many upgrades, so if you want to play the long game like I've done with Sauber, 115 upgrades, and they're expensive, these upgrades. That takes an extraordinary amount of time, and even if you do it in the most cost-effective way possible, paying for the discounts, still takes ages. It takes ages just to buy the discounts. Then it takes ages to outdevelop everyone because you're 2 seasons behind. It's like being Honda. Part of the reason that they've got such a bad engine compared to Renault, Mercedes and Ferrari in F1 is because, well, Honda started a year late. And that's exactly what's going on here with this career mode. You can't outdevelop another team unless you play the long game and fall really far back. By which time, maybe this is just me personally, but I would get bored. I couldn't stand to do 3 seasons of pretty much no development. Because I reckon to win a championship with Sauber, if it is possible, which I don't know, I'm speculating at this point, I reckon it would take 5, maybe 6 seasons to buy every upgrade. And even then, there's no guarantee that you'd win the championship with Sauber because, well, if assuming it's like F1 2016, which I assume, because I think the R&D system on this game is very similar to F1 2016's, it's just more drawn out. Because on F1 2016, you spent 3 seasons, you bought every upgrade, you then had the quickest car on the field. Every other team then bought every upgrade, re-overtook you, and then you ended up back to where you started. So if you're in a Sauber, you ended up back with the slowest car on the grid, Manor the second slowest. If you end up with Mercedes, you could be dominant and then you'd still end up with the quickest car anyway, because that's how the R&D system worked on that game, and I think that's how it will work on this game. It's just more drawn out. So there's no guarantee that you'd ever win a championship with Sauber. If you can, it's not going to happen until season 5, 6, 7, if ever. And if you ignore the discounts and try and outdevelop everyone by buying the upgrades at the same time as them, you're never going to do it. So thus, what is the point of the R&D system? Literally, the R&D system is there, I think it's there to hold you ransom to do the practice programs. That's it, because you need to, let's assume like Tom 97 HD, he's been trying to fit upgrades at the same pace as everyone else. Now, if he didn't do the practice programs, then he wouldn't be getting as many resource points, he wouldn't be able to fit as many upgrades, and then he'd be falling back. And that's the thing, is you need to do practice to be able to get as many resource points as possible, to fit as many upgrades as quickly as possible. So that's the thing, is I like how, it's kind of a double-edged sword, I like how the resource points feature, I like how it forces you to do practice, because prior to F1 2016 I never did practice on any F1 game. So it's good, it gives practice a purpose. The thing is though, is it just holds you to ransom, because you need to do it or else you fall back on development. So the only kind of fun, engaging way to play career mode in a somewhat timely manner is to join a lower end team, do well, and then accept a contract offer from another team further up the grid, and then just move up the field that way. You can't develop your way to the front, you just have to accept contracts from better teams. Thus, there's no point in the R&D system. And yes, I think that's everything. As I said it before, but I mean it now. I really am going to cut myself off here. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments on what you've experienced with the R&D system. If anyone's got further than the 3rd season, then be sure to let me know how it goes, because I really am quite curious as to when all the teams stop developing. If anyone else has done a sort of similar career mode to me, you know, buying all the discounts first, you know, what happens? Can you get Sauber to be a winning team? I don't know. I will find out at some point, because I'm going to do an all 10 seasons career mode video, which will be, well, that's going to be looking at it. That's going to be looking at the all 10 seasons, and in my experience, I've done 3 seasons, and every season so far, Sebastian Vettel has dominated. So yes, but this video has been more kind of a review and my thoughts and opinions on the R&D system, which, as far as I can tell, is just a way to hold you ransom to do practice, which is not really what it should be about. Practice should be something you want to do to be able to develop your car, not something you have to do or else you're regressing. Anyway, yes, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. As I said, be sure to leave down your thoughts and experiences with the R&D system and career mode in the comments. And yes, I'll see you guys next time for whatever video comes up next. In fact, probably a video on F1 2017, but that will be, well, that'll be a race. That'll be a more normal video. Well, I say normal, well, it's all relative really, isn't it? But anyway, yes, guys, I'll see you then.